I never planned to fall for him. In fact, I spent most of my time reminding myself why I shouldn't. My name is Isabella. I'm 30 years old. And 3 years ago, I did something I swore I never would. I fell in love with my boss's husband. Her name was Victoria Hayes, the woman who owned the company I worked for. Sharp, confident, intimidating in the most magnetic way. She built an empire before she turned 40. People feared her, admired her, envied her. And then there was Michael, her husband, quiet, kind. The kind of man who didn't need attention. His presence felt through calm rather than power. He'd wait for her in the lobby after work, holding her coffee, smiling like he still adored her after all these years. They looked perfect, that golden couple everyone wanted to be. But perfection is just a costume, and I was about to see what lived underneath. It started during the company's charity gala. Victoria was late. Michael was standing near the bar, looking restless, checking his watch every few minutes. I was assigned to assist him with logistics. He smiled politely when I introduced myself. Isabella, right? Victoria mentioned you. I nodded. Yes, sir. I'm just helping coordinate the donations. He laughed softly. You don't have to call me sir. I already feel old enough tonight. His voice, it had warmth. The kind that makes you feel safe without knowing why. We talked about small things, the music, the crowd, the weather. But behind every word, there was something else, a pull. Something I couldn't name yet. When Victoria finally arrived, she barely looked at him. Her words were clipped, her tone sharp. And I remember watching his face fall, just slightly, as he handed her the drink he'd been holding for nearly an hour. That's when I noticed it. The loneliness in his eyes. The quiet sadness of a man who used to be seen and wasn't anymore. After that night, I saw him more often. Sometimes he'd pick her up from the office, waiting in the lobby, lost in his thoughts. Sometimes he'd ask if I could relay messages to her when she was too busy to take his calls. And sometimes, when she left late, he'd stay back just to help me pack things up. One evening, he asked softly, "Does she ever slow down?" I smiled. "Not really. She's built like a storm." He chuckled, "Yeah, and I used to be the one holding the umbrella." We both laughed, but the laughter felt heavy, because we both knew there was truth buried inside it. Weeks passed, and then one night, the rain came down like the city was washing away its sins. Victoria had left for a business trip in Boston, and I stayed late at the office to finish reports. When I walked outside, drenched and freezing, I saw headlights flash. It was him, Michael. He rolled down the window. "Need a ride?" I hesitated, then got in. The car was warm. The air smelled faintly like cedar and rain. He smiled. "You look like you've had a long day." "I could say the same about you," I replied. We drove in silence for a while, until he pulled over near my apartment. The rain was loud, steady, endless. I turned to thank him, but he was just sitting there, staring out the windshield, lost. "She doesn't even notice when I'm gone anymore," he said quietly. It wasn't meant for me. It was just truth, slipping out of a tired heart. I should have said something comforting, something professional. Instead, I whispered, "I notice." He looked at me then, really looked. Like he was trying to remember the last time someone meant what they said. And then, without another word, he kissed me. It wasn't fast or wild. It was slow, careful. Like he was asking for permission to feel alive again. And I let him. The world outside disappeared. The rain, the rules, her name, all faded into the sound of our breathing. His touch was gentle, hesitant, like every movement carried guilt and hunger at once. It shouldn't have happened, but it did. And when it was over, we just sat there, silence between us thicker than the storm. "This never happened," he said softly. I nodded. But my heart disagreed, because something inside me had shifted, something I couldn't undo. After that night, we didn't talk for days, then weeks, but the silence was loud. He'd still come to the office sometimes, his eyes avoiding mine, yet always finding me. And I hated how much I missed him, how much I wanted what I couldn't have. Until one morning, Victoria called me into her office. She looked radiant, cold, controlled, and powerful. "I need you to help my husband plan my surprise anniversary dinner," she said. The words hit like a knife. That night, when I called Michael to discuss it, there was a long pause. Finally, he said, "I can't do this." "Do what?" I whispered. "Pretend I don't feel what I feel when I see you," my breath caught. "Then don't." We met again, in a hotel room that smelled like new sheets and bad decisions. He held me like he'd been holding his breath for years. I told him I loved him. He didn't say it back, but I felt it. For the first time, I wasn't the assistant. I wasn't the shadow. I was his, even if just for one night. But guilt always finds its way in. A week later, Victoria sent me a text, "Dinner tomorrow night. Bring something elegant. You'll sit next to Michael." I stared at my phone, my hands trembling. And when I walked into that restaurant the next evening, I saw him there, perfectly composed beside her. He looked at me once, just once. But that look said everything. The speeches began. Laughter, music, champagne. And then Victoria raised her glass. "To my husband, the only man I've ever trusted with my whole heart." Everyone clapped. I smiled, pretended, but my chest burned. Because I knew the truth. Trust had been broken long before I ever touched him. After dinner, she hugged me tightly and whispered, "You're more than an employee, Isabella. Your family." I wanted to disappear. Because betrayal doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it hides behind polite smiles and candlelight. I resigned 2 days later. No explanations. No goodbyes. And I never saw Michael again. But sometimes, when it rains, I still think of him. The way his hand trembled when he held mine. The way guilt tasted like whiskey and rain. I wonder if he still looks for me in crowded rooms. If he still thinks about that night. Or if he buried it like I tried to. But some memories don't die. They just live quietly, under your ribs, behind your smile. He wasn't mine. He was never supposed to be. But for one night, he was everything. And that's the cruelest kind of love. The one that was real, but never meant to last.